Hello and welcome back to the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast, your safe spot for C-Drama chatter. I'm your host, Liliana, and it's time to sit back, grab your tea, and let's chat Asian dramas. In today's episode, we are going to be reviewing the Chinese drama In the Name of Blossom. But just before we get into that, some housekeeping. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on the platform you listen on. That really helps the podcast reach other listeners. For more content, check out Patreon, where you can find behind the scenes, first impressions, mini reviews, and more. Finally, if you would like to chat to me or find a community, check out Discord, Instagram, and other socials. The link is in the episode notes. So we have a returning guest, and I'm just going to let her go ahead and introduce herself.
All right. Hi, my name is Corinne, and I am one of the co-hosts of the excuse me. I am one of the co-hosts of the podcast Sex Love Literature, where we talk about all kinds of pop culture and how sex, love, romance, desire, consent work in all sorts of media. And personally, I watch a lot of K-dramas and C-dramas, so I am delighted to be here to talk about them because I can only get my co-host to watch so many.
I know. I always find it very interesting which ones you can convince her to watch, which ones you can like. It's like a little game. Which one is Ayani gonna go
hmm
with?
Yeah, I can get her to do fantasy more often than some other things. She won't do
Mm,
historicals, but lately she's been pretty busy, so I think she might be more persuadable for K-dramas than C-dramas just because of like the
they're
length
shorter.
issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, I, uh, we just have to like come up with some dramas that are short. Short
hmm
Chinese dramas to get her to try them out. But yeah, have you watched? I don't know actually. Have you watched 12 Letters?
No, I haven't. I really like the actress who was in it because I was watching her in When Destiny Brings the Demon, and it
Oh,
looked really interesting, but I just didn't have the time to pick it up.
mm, absolutely. That is definitely like one of my top, like literally every single guest that I have on, I'm like, you need to go and watch 12 Letters. It is
Okay,
that
okay.
good. It is that good. And also, it just popped into my head because we were talking about short drama, because it's only 12 episodes. And the
I can do that.
episodes And the episodes are only about 40 minutes each.
hmm
Like they don't really have much more time than that. So highly, highly, highly recommend. It's hard to watch in some places
hmm
because there is like abuse, there is like that sort of, but the acting is top notch and the plot is very interesting, very,
hmm
very interesting because it's like two timelines connected by a mailbox. So,
Okay,
that
yeah.
that basically what happens is you have like 1991 and 2026 and something happens that kind of changes the future a little bit and they have this one post bot that if they send a letter through it, like it'll travel between the two timelines.
hmm
But it's one of those shows where the rules are very defined and everything kind of makes sense. It's not like, those shows sometimes when they have time traveling or anything, like nothing makes sense. They just kind
Time
of,
travel pretty easily breaks down when you look at it too hard.
but this one, it made sense, like what is kind of happening. So I was like,
hmm
I was very impressed, very, very impressed by it. So yeah, highly, highly recommend that one. But let's talk about what have you been watching currently?
Yeah, so currently I am watching Love's Ambition because of my
Hmm.
deep love of Zhao Luce because she's
Oh my God,
so fabulous. And
she
I'm
really is.
I'm not normally a contemporary person, but this one is working for me, so I'm really enjoying it.
I was just mentioning to you before we start, I literally just finished it before we came on to start recording and I bought the express pack. Like I will say I'll bought the express pack. I was not gonna wait. I really, really liked this one. I think it's such a different role for Zalushi, such a different
hmm
role. It's more mature. She's a much more serious character. Um, and I think a lot of people initially didn't. it's one of those concepts where you kind of have to be patient with the drama. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be character growth and it's going to take you places where, you're going to end up happy with how everyone kind of turns out. But those beginning episodes, I can see why a lot of people were a little bit frustrated because, it's a marriage and she's marrying into money and the parents
Mm-hmm.
are a little bit awful and she's like lying and he like everybody's lying and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a little bit messy, but it it is very rewarding as a show, I think.
Yeah, so I started watching it around the time that like the divorce era was actually airing, and I was watching it. I was like, I need to get to the divorce era. I need to see the divorce stuff. I want to see like when they get mad. And
Yeah.
there was a point where I was like, I don't care about this. I don't care about her getting in with the mom. I don't care about her getting in with the brother. Like he was cute though. I do like it when she gets to play things a little bit funnier.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when her roles can encompass being both more serious and doing more comedy. But yeah, it finally felt earned when they split up, and I was like, "Oh, okay. I see why I had to spend the time doing all of this for this to land emotionally,
Yeah,
for
like it
like you to
needed to.
understand why she's so upset." I don't know if I'm like not to like turn this into a deep dive on Love's Ambition, and I only watched up to episode 26, but like so there is room where they could like bring it around where I believe the male lead's like sort of redemptive arc, but he was just so cruel to her that
Fine.
like I just don't know if like I could go back to that. Like because it's not just that he lied to her, it's that he like was very cruel about it when she figured it out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like, and I just don't know if I could be with someone who had that much like cruelty or potential for cruelty in them.
Mhm. I think, without giving too much away, I think to
Hmm.
me, I was happy where it ended up because this show, I think, is really. There's a very famous saying of you don't know what you have until it's gone. And this is
Hmm.
very much that. He really does not know what he has until she walks away from it. Um, and
Hmm.
I think where they end up at the end is in a healthy place for both of them. I think both of them
Hmm.
have had the time apart to kind of individually grow, especially Shuyan. I think Shuyan truly comes into her own. And I think
Hmm.
that's what makes the biggest difference is that by the end, she truly is not trying to please anybody and
Hmm.
everybody kind of loves her by the like they just naturally love her and appreciate her, and I think that has lends a lot of strength to the you know
Hmm.
how everything kind of wraps. But I was happy, like I was happy with it. um I think with him it has always been about control, right? Because he doesn't
Yeah.
really have a lot of control within his life. He really doesn't. Like his yes, he's like, I don't know, vice president, but his dad is very much in control of
Yeah.
like all of
He's
his
so dependent
decisions.
on the whims of his parents, especially his father.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think he wanted to find that control wherever he could, and
Hmm.
especially in his marriage. And I think the journey that he kind of goes on, especially like through 27 and episode 27 and episode 28 and even episode 29, those three episodes show how much he's kind of grown as a character, I think. So to
Hmm.
me, it ended up in a place where I was happy with them overall. Like I was happy with how it kind of tidied everything up overall. Because like we have had a really long separation. I mean,
Yeah.
this is no spoiler. The breakup
Hmm.
is the whole point of the
Yeah.
show.
Like you know it's
So
coming. That's why it's
you
fun.
know it's coming. Like that's why it's fun, exactly. But I think the breakup happens like episode 14 or something. Oh, I think it's round about then. So,
Yeah.
that is a long breakup. So I that's a lot of time they spent apart. Um so yeah. you've seen this one is a mild spoiler, but by the time this episode airs, like
It'll
everybody
be
would
a
have
long
finished.
done.
Yes, yes. But have you seen, I think it's episode 26. I'm just going to say this just in case. Have you seen the car scene fight?
Yes. Yes,
Oh
I
my
have.
God.
They're so funny.
So funny, so funny. Like that scene had me rolling on the
Mm.
floor. It was so fun. The way these two actors play off each
They
other, it
have
just really
such good
works.
chemistry. Like they have good
Yes.
chemistry, like both like romantically and whatever, but also just like in the way they sort of like bite at each other once they are like not so polished the way that they are in the first half. Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. He's very hot. I get it. But like
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that
yeah.
both of them are so much funnier in the second half. Especially when
So
they're like
much
upset
funnier
or they're jealous or like they don't want the other person to know and
to
like
know.
it's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. That car scene was just so extremely funny to me. I mean, the whole scenario of them playing Barbie and Ken and playing like Bella
Uh-huh.
and Edward, and I was like, this is hilarious.
It
This is
was such
peak
like a tonal
comedy.
shift. I was like, what is happening? Like, how is this? Where did this
It
come
really
from?
was. It really was. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what all of a sudden what's happening, but I'm here for it. Sign me up because I'm kind of digging this. Um so yeah, I you'll have to let me know when you finish like how you
Hmm.
feel about it because like to me personally, I was happy with where things went. And I think ultimately the show is about the title is very, very um like well woven, like Love's Ambition, because I feel like the show ultimately is very much about love in various formats, whether it's like familial love, whether it's friendship love, but above all, like
Hmm.
self love. I think they have a
Yeah.
really big message about
Hmm.
that. And I think that's what really drew me into into the show overall. So yeah, I was happy
Yeah.
with it.
I also just really quickly, I love her older sister.
Oh my god,
She's
yes.
so like good-natured and funny, and you think she's gonna be a a negative character, negative influence at the
No,
beginning,
she's
but
so good.
she's like always ready to throw hands. Like she's
Oh
always
yeah.
ready to fight, and
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
funny.
It's so funny. And it's like their relationship alone was so beautifully built
Hmm.
because you could see how Xian kind of didn't really like her sister initially.
Hmm.
And then, that relationship was well cultivated and so well
Yeah.
built. And how
And
Ming
with
is
like
like,
without too much screen time too. Like they do it very sort of economically and
mhm,
efficiently.
mhm, mhm. And like how Ming keeps coming to her sister, and she's like, "I'm not giving you anything. Like I'm not betraying my sister. You did this. Like you.
Hmm.
There's no way." I just really really like her character overall, and
Hmm.
like how I was ready to really dislike her character from the
Hmm.
beginning because the way she's introduced and the way she kind of you just assume you're going to dislike her. So,
Yeah,
but
like that
no,
would be the
no.
archetype where she's like
Mm-hmm.
the mean bratty older sister and
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
then that's not really it.
No, no. So yeah, like I said, was very happy with it overall. So there's a couple of quibbles I had with it. But it's more, yeah, it's nothing like major.
Hmm.
Nothing major. It doesn't impact my viewing experience of the show.
Hmm.
So yeah. But yeah. Right. Should we switch gears into I just really want to call this flourished peony too.
Right, I keep calling it that, even though like, but like, that's what it is.
It is. It is. It is. I'm still so mad that they just didn't weren't able to kind of like show it because like literally the rules just changed like
Hmm.
last month where they can do longer dramas again.
Ser Oh,
Censorship. censorship.
The target always moves.
It's ever evolving. There was quite a few changes that were made that like NRTA made. One of them is no limit on episode counts, I believe, and the other one is it's a very interesting rule because where things were standing, you kind of had to get approval before the show aired, whereas now you can get like singular approval for each episode. So you can start airing while stuff is being approved. It's
Oh, that's
very,
complicated.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's because they say it's to like they want to try and fast track dramas. But yeah. And
Oh,
also
but then
there
when they get
was
like, yeah, they have to change the story so much by the end sometimes that like, oh boy, okay.
I don't know. But I think a lot of the companies are probably just gonna stick to like airing it after they get the
Hmm.
full you know, full green light. I don't think they'll want to risk.
Yeah.
Especially because stuff always happens in C drama land. Stuff always happens. But we'll see. Right. So MDL synopsis for this is He Wei Fang, the gifted proprietor of Chang'an's thriving Fang Yuan garden, earns renown when she orchestrates a stunning peony display for foreign envoys. After uncovering the truth behind her mother's death, she turns from commerce to compassion, opening clinics and teaching trades. Together with Jiang Changyang, she aids the emperor during a time of political unrest and helps suppress Prince Ning's rebellion, all the while nurturing a powerful love that withstands hardship. So this was adapted from the novel Gu Si Fang Hua by Yi Qian Chong. This is the second part to Flourished Peony. And this is why Corinne and I reviewed Flourished Peony. It is episode
Hmm.
120 of the podcast. So scroll back about, I don't know, 30 episodes or so from this one and you'll find the review for the first part. This was filmed from January 2nd, 2024 to the 26th of July 2024, which is a fairly long uh shooting schedule. It's like 6 months, and
Hmm.
normally they do not film for that long. But this was filmed all together. Like they filmed part one and part two all together. And initially, this was meant to be like 72 episodes. It had huge cuts, but it was initially supposed
Hmm.
to be like a 70 episode drama. So second part is a 24 episodes of 45 minutes, and it aired from June 30th, 2025 to July 13th, 2025. It is a Hunan TV drama, which is the parent company that owns Mango TV. Uh, the original show, like I said, was 70 episodes. It was reduced. First part is 32 episodes, the second part is 24, giving it a total of 56. So they cut out, 14 episodes overall from
That is
the
a lot of
drama.
story.
It's a lot of story.
Yeah.
That is a lot of story. And
Hmm.
normally, like, if it's a modern day drama, you could afford to cut that much off and the
Hmm.
story will still flow. A historical does not work quite like
No.
that. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Um, and I feel like this drama kind of felt that cut.
Yeah.
Um, so Douban scores for this are part one is scored a 7.8 and part two is scored a 7 on Douban. Those are considered fairly good scores for Douban. In general, it's well known that Xinyetzins are a lot harsher when it comes to their dramas. They are a lot
Hmm.
more critical of what they're watching than us fellow Westerners over here. We tend to be a
Hmm.
lot more lenient on stuff. And that is always obvious when you compare scores from Douban and MDL because MDL part one is an 8.6 and part two is an 8.3. So scores are always very different. So director for this is Ding Zi Guang, and he's been directing since 2013. He directed My Amazing Boyfriend season 2, Find Yourself from 2020, Go Ahead from 2020, and Meet Yourself from 2023. The screenwriter is Zhang Yuan, and she has been screenwriting since 2014, and she's done things such as The Mystic Nine from 2016, Ashes of Love from 2018, The Golden Eyes from 2019, Immortal Samsara Part 1 and Part 2 from 2022. So that means this screenwriter has worked with Yang Zi three times now, because Yang Zi is a female lead for Ashes of Love and for Immortal Samsara. So she's
Hmm.
worked with her a few times. And then this is a joint screenwriter. So we have Jia Bin Bin, and she's been screenwriting since 2018, and she's done Legally Romance from 2022, Immortal Samsara Part 1 and Part 2 from 2022. And she's also done Blossom, which was a very big hit last
Hmm.
year. And we reviewed it, we covered it on the podcast. It is episode 113. That is the Blossom review. So yeah. So, where could you watch this, Vicky? And you can watch it on Mango TV. I wouldn't recommend it because their subtitles are horrendous. Go watch it on Vicky. Like, it is very rare that I tell listeners to go watch something on Vicky over like the Chinese platform. If it's Mango TV, go watch it on Vicky. Go watch it on Vicky.
Yeah,
I
that's
that
what I
is
hear.
yeah, that's why I'm worried, because Whispers of Fate, which is the Lo Yun-chi drama, the one where he looks
Ah.
absolutely stunning, is a Mango TV drama. And I'm just like, please, please, Vicky, pick it up, and pick it up as soon as Mango TV
Yeah.
airs it as well, so I can, um, go watch it there. So as for cast, we have Yang Zi, and she's been acting since 2001. She is a child actress. She's been
Mhm.
around a long time. So she was in Lost You Forever season 1 and season 2, which you guys have. Did you guys review Lost You Forever?
We did. That is one of the ones I got Ayani to watch. We did a
Yes.
total of 5 episodes because we did 3 episodes on part
Yeah.
one and 2 episodes on part two. We were
Mm-hmm.
very obsessed with that drama.
That was a good one. That was a good one. Part one more so than part two, in my opinion,
Hmm.
but
Agreed.
yeah. But yeah, so we she's also done Immortal Samsara from 2022, Psychologist from 2021, which is arguably one of her lesser known dramas, but it's a very different role from her. But not a lot of people have watched Psychologist.
Hmm.
She's also done Go Go Squid from 2019 and Ashes of Love from 2018. She will always hold a kind of special place in my heart,
Hmm.
because Ashes of Love was my very first Asian
Oh.
drama ever. So Yang Zi was kind of like my introduction into Asian
Hmm.
dramas. So I think regardless, I know a lot of people crap on her constantly. But to me personally, I like her.
I think she's so good. Like I think
Yeah.
particularly in Lost You Forever, like from what I understand at least, a lot of the roles that she had just weren't asking her to do as much as she was capable of doing.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think, for example, in this one specifically, I'm just gonna call it Flourished Peony. Blanca. Like in this one,
I mean,
I
I'm
think
not
the
gonna come for
role,
you.
yeah, I don't think listeners are either, but regardless, I think specifically in this one as well, it shows how much more she can do.
Hmm.
um so yeah, I don't know, I like her, and like I said, I will always have a slight bias towards her because I feel like she was my introduction. So as for male lead, we have the wonderful Xian, and he's been acting since 2014. So he's done Will Love in Spring from 2024, which highly recommend. I really liked Will
Yes,
Love in
I
Spring.
like that one too.
It's a very much a more mature drama. So I think if
Hmm.
you're like younger audiences, I don't think they will enjoy
Hmm.
Will Love in Spring. I think you need to be in a more certain type of place in your life.
Hmm.
Um to enjoy it, if that makes sense, I think.
It does to
Um,
me.
I think it makes sense. So, and he's also done Meet Yourself from 2023, which Meet Yourself is one of my favorite. It's just so
Hmm.
cozy and heartwarming. I loved
Yes.
Meet Yourself. He was also in Sword Dynasty from 2019 and Medical Examiner Dr. Chin from 2016, which I reviewed on the podcast. I actually watched it and reviewed it with Caitlin on the podcast in season 3. So I don't remember what episode it was, but if you want to listen to that, scroll back. It's on the podcast feed. At this point, at this point, I'm coming up to 150 episodes, and I'm just like, I don't
Oh,
know.
wow. Yeah.
I, I kind of like, I don't know which episode it is. If I know I've done a review, like I'll look back beforehand and like write down because otherwise there's no way I could remember what specific episodes are. So there are other characters. So we got Miles Wei as Liu Chang, and we have Zhang Yaqin as Lu Yuzhen. But those are kind of like more the main characters.
Hmm.
So let's start with just some general non-spoiler thoughts. I know it's a little bit harder to do because this is a second part, but just
Hmm.
overall, what did you think about this drama?
I thought it was fine.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
I thought it was reasonably solid. I think honestly my disappointment was because of how high my expectations were because of how much I liked the first part.
Mm-hmm.
And because the first part had such a slow burn romance between the two leads, and then we finally like see it get going in the second part, but like I had lost the momentum for caring about them getting together, and it took me
Mm-hmm.
too long to get back into it for a 24 episode story.
I
Like
agree. I
you
agree.
can't I can't not care for 10 out of 24 episodes. Like that's just
Mm,
not it just doesn't work.
no, I agree. I'm the same. I feel like eh, the second part, we were ready for them to be together from the get-go because
Hmm.
you built all of this up. Like you've been
Yeah.
building this relationship for 32 episodes. And then I feel like we start the show and you feel like, oh, they're gonna get together, we're gonna get, we're finally get it's finally gonna pay off for us as viewers.
Hmm.
Uh and then it doesn't, and it keeps not. And then the actors and then the characters start doing stuff that is incredibly out of character.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm like, why are you not communicating? You've
But
been
their whole strength is communicating. Like, oh.
I think, do you know what it is as well? I will put this out there. I think our viewing experience will be biased towards how we watched it. We watched it in two separate parts. I feel like we lost the
Hmm.
momentum. If this, I believe I would be interested, and listeners out there, if you're listening to this and you watched it as a whole drama, so, you watched it all together as the 50 something episodes rather than us who watched it on air, please let me know what kind of like your viewing experience was because I feel like perhaps I wouldn't have been as I don't know. I maybe would have been a bit more forgiving because I was in that momentum of
Hmm.
waiting for them to get together that I could probably wait a little bit longer because I had already been waiting for 32 episodes. So,
Hmm.
I
And you
can,
weren't getting crumbs at the beginning that would have
yes,
been more satisfying if I had been yearning for the crumbs, but I
mhm,
wasn't yearning for them anymore, so then the crumbs weren't sufficient.
exactly. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I think, I don't know, their chemistry is great. Like that didn't change from part one to part
Hmm.
two.
Oh, their
Their
acting is
chemistry,
so good. They're so fun to watch on screen. Like I wasn't mad that I was watching it. Like I did keep coming back for every episode. I felt like I didn't love it as much as I wanted to.
yeah, yeah. And to me, I feel like this seems to be the curse of dramas that have been split into parts.
Hmm.
I feel like you lose the momentum a bit,
Hmm.
and that is just not something you can gain again when you're watching it, you know, dramas split into different parts. The acting was good. I really liked the acting. Um I liked how the story was still kind of focused on the female lead a little bit and like her journey. But to me, see, I was expecting, so my expectations going into this second part was for 32 episodes, we had Mudan's, so Young's character's story, right? And where
Hmm.
she ended up at the end of the 32 episodes of Flourished Peony Part 1 was, to me, her story was done. Like, I didn't necessarily need to know much more about her story in essence. And then
Yeah,
I
the
was
merchant stuff
thinking,
was sufficient for me.
exactly,
I
like
don't.
that was done.
A merchant story can only take me so far.
Exactly. So, like, her story to me was done. So, I thought the second part we were going to do a big shift into the male lead's kind of story and his more like background and her kind of helping him to get
Hmm.
where he wanted to get. And that kind of happened, but it happened much later than I was thinking it was going to. Um, so yeah, I didn't really appreciate how the male lead was making choices that were very out of character for him, and he
Hmm.
wasn't communicating. Like their whole thing, this whole drama has always been how much they communicate and how good at talking to each other they are. To suddenly have that taken away, it was a little bit jarring. And I was like, I don't
Hmm.
understand this choice. This was a choice that was made. And this is and not necessarily a good one, in my opinion. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, did I still enjoy this? Yes. I just don't think I enjoyed it as much as part one.
Hmm.
I think I enjoyed part one more. The villains were out of whack. Those villains were really out there being evil. Um, and I don't know. I don't know. I think the politics were done fairly well, like the planning and stuff and how things kind of shaped up. I was happy with like the ending, but by the end, it wasn't one of those dramas where I was like, "Oh my god, I need 10 more episodes or anything like that." By the end, I was like, "Yeah, I'm kind of done. Like
Hmm.
I'm finished. I liked it, but I'm ready to move on." Um, which was not how I was feeling by the end of part one. Because by the end of
Yep.
part one, I was like, I need the rest of this drama right now. But it is what it is. So let's rate this and then we can get into spoiler territory. So the ratings go as follow. One teacup, it was something I watched. It wasn't good, but something made me finish. And that's a 1 to a 5.5 on MDL. Two teacups, the okay ones. Dramas I don't really recommend, but they are an okay background watch. And that's a 6 to a 7 on MDL. Three teacups, the enjoyable ones. Good dramas, they're enjoyable, and I would recommend to people who enjoy this genre, and that's a 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. Four teacups, the loved ones. These are dramas I really loved. There might be a couple of problems with it, but overall, a really enjoyable drama that I would recommend to a wider audience. 8.5 to a 9.5 on MDL, and five teacups, the Rose Glass No Faults dramas. This rating is reserved for those dramas that you love so much that you are willing to ignore any problems they may have. And that's a 10 on MDL. So for me, I put part one. I think I think hopefully I'm not misremembering. I think I rated it a 40 cub for the first part. This part, I think I'm gonna go three teacups because I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. And
Hmm.
so I think if I were to rate the whole thing, it would probably be like 3.5. I would stick it in the middle of the two.
That's
But
exactly what
part
I was
two,
thinking.
yeah, like the drama as a whole for me sits at like 3.5. Part one a three and like part two a four. But yeah, that's my rating.
Yeah, I think I would, now that the whole thing is out, and if I like had someone I knew who liked historicals, I would still recommend it because the
Mhm.
first part is so good, and then the second part will make it feel complete. But yeah, if I
Mhm.
was, I would probably not recommend the second part if it was like a standalone drama.
Oh
Like there
yeah,
would be
no.
other things I would recommend for it. Like
Yeah.
it was fine. It was sufficient. But like the politicking, the rebellion was like much more typical. Like that we
True,
have
couldn't
that
care less.
story. But like we know that story. We've seen that story a million times. It
Yeah.
is the first part where we are getting a different story.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I think the second part becomes more predictable.
Hmm.
And I think that takes away a little bit from it. I think the thing is, the heart and soul of this show was always Mudan's story and how she brought these women into her circle and kind of helped these people along, right? To me, that has always been the star quality about this
Hmm.
show. It's because it was like a woman's story, so to speak. And I think they kind of lost that in the second part a little bit. And yes, I
Yeah.
did say earlier that I was ready for it to switch to Jiang Chang's story, but I didn't want things to become so predictable.
Hmm.
Just because we were switching away from Mudan's storyline, I think. So,
Hmm.
so yeah. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have watched this drama, then go ahead and carry on listening. If you haven't and don't want to get spoiled, then please pause this now, go and finish up the drama, and then come back and check in with us. So, let's go straight into characters because I feel like Mudan's character in this second part almost took a little bit of a backseat in certain place. Like we were expecting her to, but lots of things were happening, and then but it still felt like nothing was. I don't know how to explain this. Um, so I have a note here for episode one where she says something about she says this. We start this thing off, right? Let me just go
Hmm.
straight into. We start this thing off where we have a blooming concubine join the house,
Hmm.
and I could not care less about this whole concubine storyline. The only thing that I thought was fun is that it made our male lead and our female lead kind of have to act a certain way, like kind of push them
Hmm.
together. But I really don't like this whole playing females against each other. It just felt not necessary. And I really liked it's a line that Mudan says, and she says, "The world is harsh to us women. Why employ tricks to harm each other?" And I feel like that's Mudan's whole thing, right? Is that she does not want to get involved in any of these side politics. She just wants to live her life, and you know. So yeah, I don't know kind of how we got to a place where I don't even know how to explain it, but I feel like Mudan kind of lost her sparkle a little bit in this second part. I don't know. I don't know. What did you feel about her character?
So I think the writing let her down a lot. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
agree. And part of that, like it just didn't have the same sort of like pointed commentary about like misogyny and patriarchy that the first half had. Like having this additional concubine in the house, like that storyline, you it like kind of worked and kind of didn't work. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit so like one of the things that happens is that like basically Mudan and the male lead Changyang give this concubine they catch her basically
They
being a
do.
spy for the prince and offer her the opportunity
Mm,
to start a new life and she turns it down.
yes.
And I do
Yes.
think that is interesting in terms of like people who are in abusive relationships of all sorts. In this case,
Hmm.
this poor woman with essentially the prince,
Yeah.
and not like a romantic relationship, but like the power dynamics are such that like he
Hmm.
can do with her what he wants, but she also feels like that's her only access to power and to making a living. And that does feel like a continuation from the first part, but like it required pitting women against each other for this to happen. And then like it takes the very sort of tragic turn later that like she becomes
She
someone
ends up,
else's
yeah.
concubine and then she ends up being essentially beaten to death. And it that so maybe like I'm thinking this through as I'm saying it. Like that
Yes.
felt like a callback to the first half, but it didn't
Mhm.
fit in the second half where we were much more concerned about the politics of trying to not exactly overthrow the prince, but stop him from using the emperor as his
Yes.
puppet and get him and his corrupt cronies out of power so that the much more just emperor can do emperor things, I guess. But like I don't know, they just didn't mesh those two kinds of stories very well.
I agree. I agree. And I think for me as well, it felt like so in the first half we had I think it's Shi's character who was Mudan's she worked with Mudan and Mudan got her out of that marriage and then ultimately she went back
Yeah.
into that marriage. So I felt like there was no need to
We didn't need to
repeat
do it again.
history itself. So
Yeah.
I wish the concubine here would have taken that out. That would have been a very interesting route, right? If she had
Yeah.
chosen to kind of like walk away from it. But she doesn't. And I don't think it was necessary. Like, it's one of those deaths that aren't necessary in
Yeah.
essence. It doesn't really shoot the plot in any direction.
She was kind of fridged almost, like
Yeah.
used for other people's character development. Her death and the harm she suffered is used for other
Hmm.
people's character development. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Um, as in for Mudan, I did really like so in episode 5, I like it. So at this point, our male lead has been imprisoned. I loved this scene in the sense that she protects his house and like she doesn't let anybody in. And,
Hmm.
she pulls out the sword on the second male lead and she's like, "You are not entering this house." And I'm like,
Hmm.
this is the Mudan that I like love. It's this
Yeah.
fearless, exceptionally loyal character that she has this ability to inspire loyalty from others and to
Hmm.
inspire others to be better and to expect more out of life than
Hmm.
the cards that they are dealt. And this scene was just something that I really, 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 really enjoyed. But then within the same scene, the same episode, her beloved, her fragrance garden gets burned to the ground. And that hurt me a little bit
Yeah.
because if 30, 32 episodes it took her to build this thing, this garden. And I was like, do we really need, did we really need to burn it to the ground? It was so sad to see it happening because she was celebrating her achievements and then all of a sudden that's not the case. And yeah. How did you feel about like that whole arc?
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Mm, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like I appreciated the sort of individual interactions there, like the male lead then like breathing the fire, which he's very afraid of to help rescue some of
Mm-hmm.
the plants, and like that works, but there it
Mm-hmm.
also was just like I don't know, it was so upsetting. And then we don't really get the fragrance garden back, or like
You
she doesn't
don't.
really get it. Like they do
No.
rebuild it and like it does remain like a home for people, like a business
But
home
it's
and
not
also like a home for
hers.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not hers anymore. She kind of loses the thing she was working for that was so symbolic to her, both of her own success and of her mother. And yeah, I mean, I guess I get it. And also like So what do we think so related to this relates to then the county princess and her development.
Yes.
And I think like the first third-ish, like the sequence leading up to the fragrance garden being burned down
Hmm.
has a lot to do with the county princess having this perceived rivalry with Mudan because her husband is a shoe, quote unquote, loves Mudan still. Like, I don't know. That's another sort of twisted relationship
He's
that Mudan would like
obsessed with her.
nothing to do with.
Yeah, I don't think there's any love there. I think it's complete obsession, which is what I think
Yeah.
the county princess has with him in turn, is that
Hmm.
she doesn't love him. She's obsessed with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, her character is very, very interesting. I think
Hmm.
she is almost the counterbalance to Mudan's character,
Yeah.
right? Whereas Mudan has grown up in this very freeing environment, she wasn't bathed in absolute riches. Yes, her family was well off, but she wasn't necessarily, you know, lavished or rich or anything. Nothing compared to what the county princess is, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's very interesting because Mujan grew up with a lot of freedom and a lot of, I don't know, a lot of love surrounding her. Whereas the county princess, on the surface, it seems like she has everything, right? She
Hmm.
has money and she has status and she has all of this, but she has no freedom.
Hmm.
Does her father even really love her or just sees her as a pawn to be used
Hmm.
when he needs to?
Hmm.
So yeah. Yeah. What were you going to say more about the
Um,
county princess?
I really appreciated the sort of twistedness of the County Princess and Zishu's relationship, and I feel
Mhm.
like burning down the fragrance garden was more in service of that relationship's development
Mhm.
in a way that
Mhm.
did a disservice to Mudan.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It kind of threw them in a different direction and it kind of
Hmm.
put Mudan a little bit backwards. But in relation to that, actually, some of my favorite interactions, believe it or not, in the part two were interactions between Mudan and the County Princess. I just
Hmm.
think they had very interesting um interactions and they
Hmm.
come at things so incredibly different. That's why I say I feel like they are, complete opposites of the spectrum. And I
Hmm.
think one of the ones that I kind of highlighted in my notes is episode 8, where the princess is being whipped for burning down the fragrance garden. And they have this
Hmm.
interaction, and I wrote down their dialogue because I just thought it was a very interesting dialogue. Um, and the female lead says, "Do you know you're plotting hurt and implicated those who work at Fragrance Garden?" And the county princess says, "Those aunts are only fit to be in your presence, not mine." And she says, "In your eye, common people are all ants, but isn't your luxurious lifestyle built on the grain and bricks laid down by these ants? Being so obsessed over someone who doesn't love you, turning into a blood-stained monster, doesn't it make you feel sorrowful?" And then the county princess replies, "Without obsession, how can one speak of love? You don't even know what I've been through before." And Mudan replies, "As women, it is not as easy for us to establish ourselves and make a living. Some are treated as pawns in the struggle for power and profit, while others can only serve as playthings for men's amusement. There are even women who cannot be called human, discarded like worn out shoes. Many times we have no choice. Since this is the case, why not love for ourselves when we have the choice? Why make things difficult for each other? Being overly rigid leads to breakage, holding on leads to delusion. The world is vast. There is not only one person to love, nor only one thing to seek. I hope you can take care of yourself and not harm others or yourself anymore." That thing,
Hmm.
like I was watching this scene and I was like, these kind of interactions are I really like this type of
Hmm.
interaction between characters because Mudon, I feel like almost these kind of zingers, these kind of lines could be almost applied throughout history, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. And I feel like the commentary that Mudon is doing is very poignant to that specific time. And I think it could even be applicable to certain times now. But I loved when screenwriters do
Hmm.
interactions like this because I feel like the acting was so good, but the dialogue was so juicy as well.
Hmm. Yeah, so something that I appreciate about historical fiction is that it is commentary on the time that they're writing about, but historical
Hmm.
fiction is also always commentary on the time in which it is being written. They're using the past as a
Yes.
lens to comment on the present.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the sort of, I don't want to call it a trend exactly, but there is sort of a trend in Chinese dramas right now of this sort of like of thinking about feminism, which is interesting when we think about like the state of feminism and women in the workplace in
Hmm.
China, in which I only know a tiny bit about. I'm far from an
Yeah.
expert, but it is interesting to sort of think about where feminism is in different
Hmm.
countries. And I think in this drama there is enough sort of, especially if we include the first part, there is enough substance there for this kind of speech to land
Yeah.
because you've seen so many different storylines. Like Mudan isn't just saying this, we've seen this be the case for so many different characters from like
Yes.
from the slave girl from when Mudan
Hmm.
was like briefly enslaved to like her friend who was in the abusive marriage, like to Mudan herself. Like in a way this confrontation is sort of a little bit of a culmination of that through line.
Hmm. Hmm. You touched actually on the slave, and that kind of brings to mind another very interesting part about this drama that I want to get your thoughts on.
Hmm.
And that is the second male lead imprisoning Mudan in that bedroom.
Ugh.
Um, that I,
They could have gotten
I
real
think
dark there.
it got so incredibly dark, and I think it
Yeah.
went on for much longer than we needed. But it ties back in with this part because ultimately, who frees her is the county
Hmm.
princess. And that was very interesting to me because the county princess is, I mean, yes, you can argue she's doing it for her own selfish reasons. She doesn't want the person she's quote unquote in love with to have, the act of his affection or the person of his affection trapped in the same
Yeah, chained up in
place.
his bedroom.
Yes. But how did you feel about like that plot? Did you think it was because I don't necessarily think it was necessary to the story. It's like we really, really went like full on darkness there. Um,
Hmm.
I did like the metaphor of they had the bird caged as well, and like they tried. It's almost like he's trying to break Mudan's spirit and
Hmm.
Mudan's energy. That's literally what he's trying to do. But ultimately, she kind of rises above it. And I think it's another way of showing how strong she is as a character. I don't think we needed her chained to a bed for that long to figure out how
Hmm.
strong she was. But what were some of your thoughts about that, kind of era, let's put it that way, of the
Yeah.
drama?
I did find it interesting how sort of I mean obsessed with Mudan Zishu was, and it felt very much like the abusive ex that you can't escape storyline, just set in a historical setting, where like you can't. I don't know what that like. Who do you appeal to make it stop? Like he has the
Hmm.
princess's backer, and he's not supposed to like deal with Mudan anymore because of his relationship with the county princess, which he's been like blackmailed into being into. And like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know that we had to go all the way there, but it did sort of feel like the logical conclusion to Zishu's obsession. Like,
Hmm.
if he
Hmm.
was going to keep going after her for so long, like, eventually he's gonna succeed.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it was, I don't know, it was very, very interesting to me that County Princess was obsessed with Zishu, and then in turn, Zishu was obsessed with Mudan. And both of these
Mhm.
characters are characters that don't I don't think they know what love is.
Oh, so certainly not.
And I don't think they are they almost see these people or their partners as things to own rather than
Yeah.
partners. And I think ultimately, I want to actually, we can skip ahead a little bit because I really want to touch
Okay.
on these two characters and ultimately where they ended up. Because to
hmm
me, it was kind of jarring a little bit how towards the end, Zushu was just like, okay, let's be together then, because he'd lost
hmm
everything, and her, her father was dead. County Princess's father was dead. Um, and Zushu had kind of worked towards that. And I thought it was very, very interesting because he's done all of this. And I honestly thought, oh, he's going to get away with it in essence. He's going to like walk away, and him and County Princess are going to live as paupers, as common people with not a lot of money. And they are going to, but then he gets killed. And I was like, oh, I almost kind of didn't think that's like ultimately these shows when somebody is that bad, they tend to die. So I
Yeah.
was like, I thought he was going to go out in this blaze of glory, but it was a very interesting route where, and it was a very fitting ending to him in the essence that he ended up dying on the street as this very unknown, very, not cared for. And she just kind of like walks away and leaves him there like dying. So
hmm
what did you think about like how they kind of turned their story around in essence?
So I think it would have actually maybe been more interesting to me if they had ended up living together as
Hmm.
regular people. I do think probably, I mean, this is a guess, but for censorship reasons, the shoe couldn't live.
He
Like
did a lot of bad things.
I don't think he was allowed to survive this this drama. And I
Hmm.
think that would have been more interesting because they would have had to fully restart their lives and figure out who they were. And it would have been interesting to see if they could grow together instead of
Hmm.
whatever it was they were doing before.
Hmm.
uh, but it was interesting that she basically ends up like she becomes a nun, right? At the end, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah. She
which was
becomes a
very
nun.
like, okay, sure, why not?
So
It's
bizarre. I think it was a very bizarre sort of way to go about it.
yeah. But
Um,
I liked, I think their relationship was fascinating. I think what I had been hoping for, thinking back at the end of part one when they get married, is that they would end up trying to destroy each other and
each
turning
other.
on each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And I wish, their relationship, I think, was set up in a way that had the potential to be incredibly fascinating. And parts of it
Hmm.
were. We had glimpses of that. Like, going back to like when they burn when she orders the fragrance garden burned down and Zishu is there and like wants to save Mudan but wants to wait until like she's lost just enough that she's like
Yeah.
really in danger and then the county princess shows up and is like you're not doing that and
Hmm.
takes him away but so like that was an interesting glimpse at at the twistedness of their relationship but I think I found it interesting, but the drama did not get as much from it as it could have.
Yes.
And
I
like the
agree.
ending was
And
fine, but
yeah,
yeah, it was
I
just weird.
agree. And actually, I don't know, have you watched The Double from last year?
I haven't. I need to. That's one on my list that like I
Okay.
regret missing.
So I won't spoil it, but there is a princess in that one as well, and she's almost similar to the princess here, but what the double did they made her a very much more compelling character, and they
Hmm.
made her relationship with a certain character very interesting overall. And I think
Hmm.
that's something that the double did better. If listeners who are listening have watched a double, they'll understand what I'm saying when I think the relationships have similarities, but the double does it in a way where, like you were saying, it becomes much more compelling for the viewer to watch. And I think here they just slightly missed the point.
Hmm. I wonder
And
if
like you
there was
said,
more in those episodes they cut because like they
yeah,
had the setup there and
yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
didn't especially in the second half there was so like the prince's rise to full power was so glossed over that I feel like there was more there
Yeah.
and we probably would have seen I'm guessing more of the county princess and Zishu's involvement in that.
Yeah, I agree. I really, really agree. And just actually, I made a little note of something about earlier when we were talking about where Mujan does get released, and this to me is probably like one of my favorite lines in the second part, and I think it's mainly because it shows how much Mujan is almost like way out of her time in terms of how she is as a character, because she says, and this is to the county princess when the county princess releases her from this room of doom. And she says, losing my love forever breaks my heart, but I won't give up on myself. My life isn't only about love, and the meaning of my life is not based on any person. County Princess, why imprison yourself in eternal pain? And this was an interaction that I really, really
Hmm.
enjoyed because so it was very fascinating to me. Mudan thought the audience, well, we knew surely he wasn't dead, but we thought that the male lead was supposedly dead. She
Yeah.
thought he was supposedly dead. And
It's
it was,
believable that she believed he was dead at least.
yes, yes. But I just thought that this was a very, very interesting, you know, line for her to deliver because she's like, yes, he's dead. Yes, I'm heartbroken, but my life still needs to go on. Like, I still need to live, and I'm
Hmm.
living for myself. Like, I was never living for him, I was living for me. And I think that's so true to her character. And I'm really glad. I will say this is one thing that I do appreciate is that they don't change Mudan as a character, even when she does fall in
Hmm.
love and become, Jiang Chang's partner. And, you know, so I really, really appreciate that aspect of Mudan's character, I think.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
I agree.
Let's
Her
touch.
reaction, oh sorry, I was just gonna say
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
her reaction to the perceived death of her partner, I think, was very solid because she doesn't stop.
Hmm.
Even when everything seems incredibly hopeless, she doesn't lose hope. And that is internally consistent with her character. Like from the beginning of part one. Like when
Hmm.
things are
Hmm.
when she's at her lowest, she, hikes to the city with a plant on her back. And here she like thinks that everybody she loves is dead. I'm not quite everybody she loves because she sent some people out of the city for their own safety, but like she thinks that like things have gone the worst they could go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
I
almost
mean,
like a yeah, it was almost like a red wedding type sequence. Like
oh my God, it was terrible. It was
it
absolutely
was
like
brutal. Like that was a violent banquet.
it truly was. And all of a sudden, we have everybody pretty much dead or on their way to being dead. Mujan is stuck in this chamber of doom by the second male lead, like literally. Yeah, I don't know what I'm blanking on the word, but she's literally attached to the bed, changed to the bed. That's what I was literally
Yeah.
changed to a bed in a room. And it's just like, my God, like, who's left? Like, who's going to come and save the day?
And like there's
Um,
no one left to save her except the
exactly.
county princess apparently.
Exactly. Which, to be fair, I don't think, I guess I could see it coming and couldn't because. she would want her away, but also I just think going back it was very interesting that it was her. To be fair, she was probably the only person left to go in. But since you've touched on the banquet, let's talk about it because
Yeah.
very bloody banquet, very bloody banquet.
hmm
Um, and I don't know, it was obviously then it comes to light that they kind of planned around it, but did we think it made sense that Prince Ning was the one who didn't quite kill Jiang Chang?
No.
Because no sense. Like, no sense
But like
whatsoever.
I'm
I
I'm
think
willing to suspend my disbelief, but also that is stupid.
it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, they found me and I was able to escape." And I'm like, "And you just come in to save Mudan at exactly the right
Well, and
time."
like it's
And
been years. Like he's been it's taken years for Mudon to like work and like building up this rebellion again and like yeah. Well, like I do appreciate a little bit, or I did appreciate Mudon in basically in her widow era. Uh
yes, and I loved I did love yeah.
like some of the most heart-wrenching, well, the most heart-wrenching scene, the one that like still has stuck with me from the drama is the one where it's like I don't even remember exactly why, but she's like out having dinner and drinking like I think by the side of a lake or something, and
Yes.
she's talking to him and she's like, "Wait, how are you here?" And it turns out that she had fallen asleep and he says like this is a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point that she still is so heartbroken and misses him so much and feels like he could be back and then is like, wait, you can't be back. And then he's
Yeah,
not,
you're definitely
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah, like that feeling of like, oh no, like that this is a dream. This isn't real. And having that
Mm-hmm.
the rug yanked out from under her. That scene was very, very well acted and very well done. And also like is interesting that she could hold that level of emotion and grief and still be getting things done to overthrow the
Yeah.
prince at the like the grief doesn't incapacitate her, but that doesn't mean that it's not there.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And I think Yang Zi played that role so
hmm
beautifully, so beautifully. And those were some of the scenes where I was like, I kind of really love this again.
hmm
And again, it's when Mudon is kicking butts and taking names, so to speak.
Yeah.
um it's when the focus is fully kind of like shifted back to her and her kind of taking the reins again. I just
hmm
really loved it. But let's touch a little bit on Jiang Chang because we haven't mentioned him
Yeah.
very much. And I will say I'm recording this where I finished the drama like you finished it way before I did. I finished it, probably about a month and a half, almost 2 months before we're sitting down to record it. And I will say, I don't remember a lot of his scenes. I'm not gonna lie. And that doesn't
hmm
land. And I don't think it's an actor problem. I don't. I think it was just the way
hmm
he was kind of written for this second half. It's almost like his role is a little bit forgettable. I don't know. What did you think?
hmm So like I love this actor. Like I love having him on my screen. I am
Mm,
delighted like I think anything that his character brought to the drama came more from the actor than from the writing,
yes.
which feel is a little bit harsh. I won't say that's 100% the case. Maybe like 75% the case. But
Mm,
he doesn't have anything about him that is particularly unique or interesting or like really what makes him interesting is the way he interacts with Mudan.
yeah.
And oh, that feels mean. But you know what? That happens to a lot of female characters a lot of the
It
time where they
does. It
only exist
does.
to support the male lead. So, I'm gonna let that stand. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do remember like this is something that I think it would have hit more for me if like I'd watch part one and part two back to back, but like when he keeps wanting to like confess his feelings to Mudan because he recognizes his feelings for her first and wanting to say something and almost saying something. And then there's the sequence with like the broken hairpin where he misunderstands her meaning. And there were, I think, a too many contrived things to keep them apart. But the feeling of, I guess, because Taylor Swift is on the mind of not wanting to risk the friendship,
Yeah.
that they both have, like, is really interesting. And I did find it very satisfying when they do actually finally get together. Like that sequence was really, really lovely. And his confession and her confession, and when they finally both get over, well, him mostly gets over the noble idiocy, uh, that worked. It just took too long to get there.
Yeah, because we didn't get there till episode 17. 17 of
Ugh,
24.
17 plus 32 is too many.
That's when we got that big. I did write, no, I'm not going to read it out, but I did write their whole confession down. And I'll just pick at some lines because he's just scared that, she's going to end up suffering and she's going to end up getting tangled up in his business and end up being hurt from
hmm
it. And that's why he doesn't want to get involved in any of that. And one of the lines he kind of says to her is, my feelings. And she says to him, but no, I want to hear it from you.
hmm
And then he brings out this zinger of, yes, you're in my heart. I love you more than my own life, so I must let you go. I can't afford those what ifs. If I die before you and hurt you forever, what if I can't protect you and cause you to die with me? And I that is very sweet, but I love what Mudan replies because Mudan says, "Do you think I'm the kind of person to hang myself if my husband died? Or do you think I'm fragile to protect myself? Listen, since I dare to choose you, I can bear possibly losing you one day. We Young Whole and Tranquil Health Clinic will go south, opening branches all over. In terms of devotion to the country, mine is no less than yours. I can be your confidence. We can clearly achieve both. Why, for the sake of unknown fears, do you forsake the happiness we can have? I've heard your true words tonight. You can go now." And then he like kisses her, and it's like, oh, because we've been
Finally.
waiting. Yes, because we've been waiting so long. It's like, God, finally,
hmm
finally, we get that kiss scene. But this whole thing, I just love Mudan. I love it when she says, "Do you think I'm too fragile? Do you think really that I would
hmm
hang myself like for you?" And I think those are the wake up calls he kind of needs because he's forgotten that she does not define herself by her love for him.
hmm
She kind of loves herself and her life and a little bit more than that. So yeah, yes, would she be devastated? Yes, but she would get up the next day and she would carry on with her life. And that to me is
hmm
something that I always really appreciate from Budon. I will say, I think my main thing that I said was like, I did this for journal thoughts, but I said the second season suffers from a fallback on overused tropes like miscommunication and the introduction of Shushi, which we haven't even touched on. But Shushi is like the male lead's childhood friend who wants to marry him and be his official wife. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we don't need this. We do not need this. We have like the little brother breaking the hairpin and chasing Mudan.
hmm
We don't need this either. And I said the foundation had already been built to have the first 12 episodes be more of push and pull. We had been watching in season one for our main couple, and it was a bit of a letdown. The build for this couple had already been done. Like we've been
Yeah.
building for 32 episodes. You don't need to build anything else. You don't need to throw all of these things at their relationship. So yeah, Shushi to me was just not necessary. Well, she was necessary later on, and I like how they ended up being friends, like how she
Mhm.
ended up being friends with Mudan and how she came to Mudan's rescue and everything later on in life. Not in life, but later on in the show.
Yeah.
Um, you
It
know
was
what I
later
mean?
on in her
Later.
life in the show. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But did we really need that whole arc where Mudan is misunderstanding the male lead and is thinking that these two are going to get married? And it's like, we didn't.
Well, I wanted so something I liked is when Mudan and the Millid were like dream teaming it and were like working
Mm-hmm.
really well together and like I just because she also spends so much of it thinking that he's dead and there's so much at the beginning where they're sort of like separated from each other because of this misunderstanding like the drama was like not letting it be the thing it was good at, which is when these two are working together and like
Mm-hmm.
when these two actors are having fun on screen together
Yeah.
and like when we get to enjoy their dynamic. Like they spent so much time setting up this wonderful dynamic and then gave us so little time to enjoy it.
Yes, I agree. I think like if I were to put some final words on this, for me personally, it would be that I love, I don't mind a slow build. I don't mind angst. I don't mind any of
Mhm.
these, but you need to pay it off. Like I
Yeah.
need to have a payout at the end of it. If you're going to make me sit through a very slowly built relationship, a very like quite angsty parts, when she thought he was dead, for example. If you're gonna make me sit through all of that, you better give me the biggest payout that there
Yeah.
is. Because you just caused all of this emotional damage. You need to throw in some candy afterwards. And I just
hmm
don't think the payoff ultimately in the second half was enough for
hmm
everything that they had built for goodness knows however many episodes.
Yes. Well, and also like I think there's a little bit of a stakes problem at the end. And I know I complain about this a lot in our review of part one. But like the stakes being the fate of the country and like needing to overthrow someone in this like epic battle, I've seen that so many times. I don't care about like sometimes I care about that. Most of the time like the things I cared about in this drama were the smaller interpersonal, more domestic
Mm-hmm,
things.
mm-hmm,
So turning it
mm-hmm.
into just another story about overthrowing a tyrant, yeah, let's overthrow tyrants. I don't like them very much, but I've seen that story.
I don't want it. I don't. Yeah. I don't want it. Neither do I need it. Also,
Well, like it
that
was
damn
solid, but it wasn't unique.
no, and like also that last battle, it just looked so dumb. Like it was just a little bit dumb. Like I was like, oh,
Yeah.
here we are, a battle. And it felt out of place for the drama they had built
Yeah.
for so many episodes. Like, I mean, if you're gonna throw, I mean, you understand battles in dramas like Love Like the Galaxy. You understand battles,
Yeah.
The Prisoner of Beauty. Like, those are dramas that have geared up to these battles.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and, like even the Prisoner of Beauty could have used more battles even. Like
they
that would have
could.
been fine.
That's, see, that's fine. Those shows
Well,
have
those are about generals. It makes sense. It did not feel in character for the male lead to be running around in armor on a horse. Like that's not his deal. He's the envoy of flower and birds.
exactly like give me more flowers. Where did the flowers go in this second half? Did we forget that the name of the show is in the name of Blossom? Where did
We
our
did forget that.
flowers
It's
go?
Flourish Peony too.
Exactly, it's flourished peony too. Even worse, where did our peonies go?
Yeah, where are the peonies?
Bring back the peonies. uh So, so yeah, like the thing is, I will say, I feel like listeners will be tuning in and thinking, God, these guys hated it. Like, I
Yeah,
did not
I
hate
liked
this
it.
show. I liked this show. Okay, I did. It just, I think I had way, way higher expectations, and I should have learned my lesson. I never learned my lesson. I need to go in with low expectations into everything that I watch. But again, I really want to hear from somebody who's watched it all
Hmm.
together because I truly think that's going to give a different watching experience to us. Because to me, momentum is very important when you're watching a show. And I feel like when
Yeah.
we break dramas apart, I feel like, for example, Lost You Forever is perfect example of this as well. I feel like you
Yeah.
lose the momentum and it takes a little while to kind of get into the characters again and into the story again. And then we didn't really necessarily have the biggest payout. We had,
Hmm.
moved on thinking Jung Chong was dead, and we had, I don't know, I just didn't think we had as much of their relationship as I wish, they had added in. So,
Yeah. Well, like I think like you said it, like the problem is not that it was bad. The problem is that it could have been and should have been better.
exactly. I
Like it
agree.
was
I agree.
fine, but it like the potential was there and it didn't. It's like when I'm disappointed in one of my students because I know they can do better.
Can do
It's like
better.
you didn't do
Exactly.
bad, but like you could have been better.
Exactly. That is perfect to kind of like describe this. It's like it wasn't bad. It just could have been so much more than what it was. And I think that's really, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to kind of say about it. I
It's still
enjoyed.
beautiful. I still love the costumes and
Oh,
the set
that, and I was
design
going to
and the
say,
music.
yes, yes, the sets were stunning. Um, because that's one of the scenes actually that I really, really, really enjoyed is when she does the peonies is this in this part? I hope yes, it's definitely in this
Yeah,
part.
when she does it for the envoy, right, in winter.
Yes, and she
Yeah.
does like she makes the peonies flourish in winter. Those
Hmm.
beautifully done, beautifully
Hmm.
done, beautifully
That's where
done.
the peonies were.
Yes, yes. So that was beautifully shot, and the costuming in this part I felt like was even more elevated than in
Hmm.
the second part. I said because one of my general thoughts was the ladies' makeup in this drama is truly stunning, especially like the high ladies at the prince. So the
Hmm.
princess, county princess, has a party in episode 4, and they were all stunning. Like the makeup, the pearls, the hair. It was just all
Hmm.
very exquisite. And I really love the fact of how accurate it is to like Tang
Hmm.
Dynasty because this is a drama set in the Tang Dynasty. And I love how kind of accurate they have gone to the point where if you look at a Tang Dynasty painting, like you can see the pearls in
Hmm.
all of this. So I really appreciate the effort uh, and the budget that they put into
Hmm.
costuming. That is something this drama should definitely be applauded for, whether it's part 1 or part 2, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, also probably a benefit of having it all filmed at once is they could use these sets that they built. And it was really nice. Like I do enjoy doing, spot the reused set from drama to drama. But because this one did a lot more of their own set building, having it
Hmm.
all be very sort of visually distinct from other dramas, I thought was really nice.
Yes, this one spent a lot of money because a lot of the sets were built from scratch,
Hmm.
which they don't tend to do. Like dramas tend to reuse sets. One that just happened, for example, was so Moonlight Mystique. Um, they aired a little bit earlier on. That's like a Bailu show,
Hmm.
and Fated Hearts, which is currently airing, you can spot that some of the sets were from Moonlight Mystique. They are both Aichi dramas, and you can absolutely, if you've watched Moonlight Mystique, you will know that some of the sets are like reused. So that's always very interesting to me. But yeah, no, this one was stunning in that in that essence, the sets, the costuming, everything. And I will say the acting was good. Like
Hmm.
especially from Yang's, I still think this is one of Yang's best roles today in
Hmm.
terms of um her character and the emotion she had to put through
Yeah.
some of the scenes. So like especially that scene you were talking about where she wakes up and realizes it's a dream. Goodness, she
Yeah.
I think this was a really, really good role for her. Um, so yeah, and for Miles Way, God, he really went crazy there, but
He
he
did
did
a
it.
great job going
He did a
crazy.
great job. He did a great job. And to me, it was very interesting because Wade Ming, he doesn't really play evil roles. So it was a very interesting turn of events to kind of see him, in that aspect. So do you have kind of like any last thoughts to wrap up about this? Because I think I've said everything that I wanted to. I will just finish by saying I liked this. And like Corinne said, I think you put it beautifully. It was good, but it could have been so much better.
Yeah, I think if anyone listening has not watched it, I do still think it is worth watching because of how good part one is. Like, I would still recommend it because it is unique in the kind of story it is telling there, and part two makes it feel finished. And it also, to give credit where credit is due, even though it wasn't everything I hoped, it also did not fully jump the shark. Like, it
Exactly.
wasn't like I can no longer recommend this to anyone, which is how there are a couple of dramas I feel that way about. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the amount of material they had to cut, they kept a cohesive narrative that still makes
hmm
sense.
I agree. I agree. So that is it. That is our review of In the Name of Blossom or Flourished Peony Part 2. I feel like, either or. Uh,
Yeah.
so
You gotta search in the name of Blossom to find it on your drama streamer,
yes,
but
yes.
but it is
Uh,
Flourish Peony too.
it is absolutely Flourish Peony too. Like I said, guys, if you did watch it back to back as a whole drama, please come and let us know, you know what you thought of it because like I mentioned, I'm very keen to see what that experience was like. But Corinne, where can people find you?
You can find me on the podcast Sex Love Literature, which is streaming wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also find us on social media on Instagram, Tumblr, and Blue Sky at Sex Love Lit Podcast.
Right. And I will be sure to tag all of those in the description. Thank you so much for coming back and reviewing this second part with me. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking forward to you coming on Sex Love Literature. So,
Yes, I'm very excited to do that episode with you guys. So yeah, this has been another episode of the Tea and Soju podcast, and we shall catch you next time. Bye.
bye.